Hey guys, Gary J here. Today we're looking at another John Harbuck fighting knife. And this is really a beautiful knife right here. I have a video on a larger John Harbuck fighting knife. You get a chance to look at that one. But this is just a beautiful blade right here. John Harbuck has been making knives for over 35 years. He's a master knife maker, does really high quality work, very reasonable on his prices, unbelievably reasonable on his prices. And on this fighting knife right here, you see it's got a clip right here on it. We call that the clip right here. And the story behind John Harbuck and me, as far as wanting a fighting knife, I mentioned in the first video of John Harbuck fighting knife, and that is basically that a movie that I watched called The Iron Mistress. I'd seen it a few times and decided to want to design a fighting knife, and I tried designing a fighting knife on a computer program. It was about $1,000 computer program at the time, advanced Adobe Photoshop type program. And I came up with a design similar to this right here. It had double guards here. That's one guard, two guards. And it had a clip on it here too, and a similar handle and all. And my tip was a little bit different than John Harbuck's tip right there. And so I sent him a picture of the knife that I had generated on the computer and asked him could he build it. And when I looked at his website, he had the F-14 fighter knife, which was a lot like the knife that I had in mind. I liked his point better than mine. This point here is fairly round right here. The other knife is a little bit sharper edge right there, more like a Tanto, just a little bit. And on the F-14 that John Harbuck normally makes, he has the clip that actually comes all the way down to here. I wanted one that's like 2/3 the length of the blade right here. And so that's what he did. And I wanted this razor sharp. And of course I had to have the guard here and a guard here, because my biggest fear in the fighting knife, and I do not condone fighting with knives. I've seen what they can do to people. Okay, so but you want a guard, one so that you can hold that knife and it's not going, your hand is not going to slip off the handle. You know, if you were stabbing something, an animal, or hit a tree or something like that, your hand could slide off of the handle, and since you're gripping the blade kind of hard, you could squeeze this razor sharp blade down here with your hand and cut off a couple of your fingers, at least cut all your fingers down to the bone. You know, it could be really serious, and you got a double edge right here too. So in any kind of situation where you're using a knife, whether it's with animal or something like that, your hands are going to perspire because of the adrenaline surge your body gets. That's a normal thing that happens to everyone. So your hand could slip off of it. So you definitely want a guard on that. And I wanted a secondary guard just to make sure that my hand couldn't slip down on that blade, because that's really scary when you think about it. And plus, with the guard too, I mentioned in the other video, if you're holding a blade and another knife comes across here, the guard's going to catch it. If you didn't have that guard, that blade would cut off your knuckle, cut off your thumb, whatever. Probably if somebody's using a lot bigger blade than this one. So, you know, you need that guard. And there are techniques to knife fighting, which I've seen what knives can do to people, and believe me, nobody wins a knife fight. So I just like the design of these kind of knives. You know, you could use them for self-defense, And having someone build you a knife like John Harbuck, you have to decide on the length of the blade. Then you have to decide on what kind of metal you want. There are different types of metal, a lot of different types of metals that you can use on a blade, and decided on ATS-34 metal, which is the same metal used on my other John Harbuck fighting knife. And decide how long you want this clip, or if you want a clip. Again, that's that top piece right here. Some people don't want a clip up here, but I wanted to clip about 2/3 of the blade, and it's razor sharp. And some people get the clip down here, or maybe just part of it. So you decide on that length. So decide on the length of the blade, the length of the clip, or if to have a clip, decide on your guard here, whether you want a secondary guard. Then you got to decide on the handles, the scales on your blade. Generally, G10 fiberglass works real well because it's water resistant, oil resistant, and acid resistant. It's very tough. And of course, you want a lanyard here too. And so these are things that make a great fighting knife right here. This knife is well balanced too. And the larger one is really well balanced too. So they're well balanced knives. They're not throwing knives, I can tell you that. They're not made to be thrown. You can see the tip right here is pretty thin right here because it's razor edge. And one thing I mentioned in the other video too, that if you watch programs like Forged by Fire, they tell you a lot about knives, and they have 3 main tests that they use on their knives from the knife makers there. And that is that a knife should be able to go through just about anything. This knife would definitely thrust through anything that I want it to thrust through. So because it's got that double edge, razor sharp blade on it. And secondly, it should be able to slash. And of course, there's razor edge here, and then it will slash. It's like 1/4-inch steel on that too, on the back of the blade. And so it should be able to thrust, puncture, and to be able to slash. That's 2 things. Third thing, should be able to chop. This is not a chopper. They use a ham bone about so big around, and it's brutal on any blade. But this is not a chopper. If you wanted to disassemble an animal or something like that, or debone, you go to the joints and stuff like that to take apart an animal or something like that. You don't have to chop bone with that. I can't think of any reason why you want to chop bone. But that's the test they use on knives. So I know this knife would pass in flying colors with all of that. But again, this is designed specifically as a fighting type knife that can be used for a lot of different things too. You dull one edge right here, you've got another razor edge over here, which is a good quality. And to look at its big brother here, I would call it, would be this one right here. The difference between these two right here, if you look at the handles, get that in. The handle here is a little bit slimmer. This a little bit thicker handle right here. Of course, the color. We look at a G10 fiberglass, and we have the double guard on both of them. And the blade here on this one is 8 1/2 inch, I think. And this was 6 1/2 inch blade right here. So it's a little bit smaller, and actually this is a little bit easier to carry around too. And both beautifully and wonderfully made by John Harbuck. And the story behind wanting a fighting knife had nothing to do with fighting with knives. As far as in real life, it comes from the concept of a movie called The Iron Mistress. The Iron Mistress was made in 1952. Key actor was Alan Ladd. He played the part of Jim Bowie Jim Bowie. And he was known for fighting with knives. That's one thing he was known for. Had a few scrapes with that, but he was a very influential man in his life. He did a lot of amazing things. Look at the biography of Jim Bowie. He did some amazing things. He was born in 1776, died in 1836. He was 39 years old. He died at the Alamo with Davy Crockett. So he was just an extraordinary, colorful man. If you look at the first video, which I did on this particular knife, I'll tell you, you can learn more about the story of the movie The Iron Mistress. And that movie was all about Jim Bowie's knife. That was the main theme of the movie, was Jim Bowie's knife, The Iron Mistress. He couldn't put that knife down, I guess, like a mistress or something, and it always got him in trouble in one way or another. But that's the idea of wanting a fighting knife. And if you want a knife like this, then go to John Harbuck's custom knife page, and I'll leave a link for it. And look for F14 fighter knife, F14 fighter knife. And you can get John to give you the length blade that you want, and how long you want this clip up here, and what kind of handles you want, what kind of material, a lot of different materials, a lot of different steels. That's ATS-34 there, which is a high carbon steel with a little bit of stainless. It helps with corrosion resistant, but it will rust. And just a great blade and a great knife. So these are wonderful blades, and I haven't seen much on YouTube about John Harbuck, and I think I just wanted to put a video out showing what kind of great work he does. And the big thing too is that to have him build your knife, I was really amazed that the price was about 2/3 cheaper than I thought it would be. It was about 2/3 cheaper than I thought it would be. He's very reasonable in making knives, and such a great guy to deal with. Great personality. So hope this may help you if you decide to have a knife built. And he builds all kinds of knives besides fighting knives, so he can build you anything you want. So check him out, John Harbuck, Custom Knives, and I'll leave a link for you. Take care, Gary J.